This is the quick start guide for how to play my game, The Restless. The Restless is a dungeon crawler game for 1 to 4 players. It's best with 4 players, but you can play it solo if you're lonely or live in the forest. Now this is just the quick start guide and it won't cover every edge case in the game, so if you have questions, check the rulebook or look online at winslowdomain.com/rules for everything else. And if I forgot to mention anything in this video, I'll put it in the description. So I'll start with a quick start for those who are already somewhat familiar with this kind of game or this game specifically, and then I'll go into greater detail later in the video. Now, remember, these are just the rules that I made for the game, but it's your game, so do whatever you want with it. And I'll have some suggestions for optional rules at the end of the video. Here's how you set up the game. Before you begin, your game includes the Hierophanies of the Abyss expansion, which is included in every game because of the success of the Kickstarter. And that means that you have 101 blank cards that appear in every deck. You'll want to remove any unused blank cards before you play the game. I don't have any here because this is the demo deck. Once you do that, shuffle every deck individually. Now, unless you have giant hands, these decks are pretty big. You're probably going to have to break them into chunks, shuffle the chunks, and then shuffle these together. And keep in mind that the realms, are split into 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. You'll want to keep these separate and then shuffle those individually. And once everything is shuffled, you'll be able to actually start the game. Start by drawing and revealing 6 character cards, and decide as a party which 4 you want to pick. If you have fewer than 4 players, this means that one of your players might have to handle more than one character. So pick which ones you want, and discard the other 2. Once every player has a character, you're going to want to get your starter item cards. So draw and reveal 6 starter items, decide which 4 you want to pick, and discard the other 2. You don't have to keep your starter item if you pick it. You can give it to another character at the start of the game and then start with nothing. You can trade items anytime before or after battle, but not during it unless otherwise stated. Once every character has a starter item, the party gains 5 reroll counters. These can be spent by any player to reroll any roll in the game unless otherwise stated. So we have our items here, put those to the side for right now. Then, every character needs a health bar. So my character here has 7 health, so we'll give him 7 health coins, just like that. That's 7. Now, when you're going to play the game, you're going to take damage and heal pretty often. So, as you take damage, you don't want to actually just put this back in the bin, because then you're going to forget how much health you're supposed to have. So, just slide your health to the right as you take damage. So, I have 7 maximum health, but I've taken 1 damage here, just like that. Now remember, if you increase the maximum amount of health that you have in the game, that doesn't actually heal you. So if I ever get a, say, increase of max health for 2, it actually would go over here because it's not actually usable health until I heal up to that amount. So if I were to get another 3 points of healing, I would actually get all of that health back. There are many items that give armor in the game. Now, if an item has armor, you're going to want to put counter coins on top of it for an equal amount to the armor that it has. When a character receives damage while it has armor, you reduce the incoming damage by 1 and remove 1 counter of armor from the item. If a character is given armor directly, just place that armor directly above their health bar up here. So that means that if I have armor and I take, let's say, 3 points of damage, it would just reduce that to 2, 1 armor would go away, and I would only take 2 points of damage. Armor must be used if available, and if you have multiple sources of armor, you can decide from which source you would like to use. If the party desires, each player can receive a reminder card that has quick information about core game mechanics, and you can find these in the deck that holds the status effects. The party also receives 3 rest cards at the start of the game. Keep these face down somewhere on the table. These can be played any time other than the middle of combat. Rest cards give players a break from combat and a chance to use any items with the campfire symbol in the background. You can see that here on the Elaborationist's Hammer and Pincers or on almost any food card. During rest, the party also receives 3 more reroll counters and a small buff from whatever is on your rest card. Cards with the rest symbol, the campfire symbol that I showed you earlier, cannot be used unless the party is resting. So while resting, reroll counters can be spent to restore 2 health to a character. Upon playing a rest card, any player with a dead character can rejoin the party by drawing a new character from the character deck. These characters join the party with nothing, but they can be given items by other players. The game is spread across 5 realms of increasing difficulty, with each realm possessing unique rules that impact the encounters it contains. Once all characters have health counters and starter items, choose a card from the Realm 1 deck and read it aloud. Each realm has 4 encounters unless otherwise stated, and the very first encounter of the game is a pick from 3, so add 2 extra encounters to it. To start the game, reveal all 3 options for the first encounter and show them to the party. The party decides which encounter they would like to visit, and the other 2 are discarded. Combat encounters must be resolved through fighting or fleeing, and non-combat encounters are unique and sometimes can be entirely optional. So let's say we're going to fight the Riddlevis Subjugate. Right here. To fight a combat encounter, each player takes turns attacking the target. They can do so in any order. Once all players have taken a turn, they can repeat in any order, so pay attention to this, because player order is crucial for squeezing the most out of player abilities. If a player has a power that is active until they take another turn, it can be beneficial to put them at the start of the first cycle of attacks and then place them last at the second cycle of attacks to let the power impact the greatest number of turns in between. During a turn, a player can use 1 consumable item, like we have Psalm Plasm of the Veil. You can see it's a consumable and it doesn't have the campfire symbol right there, so they can use 1 consumable item, activate as many active items as are available to them, and then the player must attempt to damage the target by attacking. This can be done by attacking unarmed, with a melee or ranged weapon, or by attacking with a spell. Note that using a spell does not count as the 1 consumable item during their turn, so you could use the Psalm Plasm of the Veil and then use another spell during your attack without breaking the rules. Characters can also discard as many items as they want whenever you want. Characters attack targets by making rolls against the target's die defense. You can see a 7 die defense right here on the Riddlevis Subjugate. You attack by making combat, ranged, or dodge rolls. If you're attacking unarmed or with a melee weapon, you'll use a combat roll by rolling the d20. This is a 10. So if your roll is at or above the die defense, you do your damage to it. If it's below the die defense, it does its damage to you. Now, ranged rolls are like half of a combat roll. You'll see these on ranged weapons and on most spells. If your roll on a ranged roll is at the die defense or greater than the die defense of the target, you deal your damage to the target. If it's lower, it just means that you failed to damage the target, but you do not take damage yourself. Now, many ranged weapons and spells will have you attack with multiple ranged rolls, followed by a single dodge roll to give you multiple chances to damage the target, with only 1 chance for the target to damage you. Dodge rolls are the opposite of ranged rolls. If your roll is at or greater than the die defense of the target, you successfully dodge damage from the target. If it's lower, the target damages you. Remember, you only need to perform a dodge roll when instructed to do so by a card in play. Most melee weapons don't involve dodge rolls at all. Also remember that you do not need to dodge attacks from dead targets. So if you kill a target with a range roll, you don't have to worry about making any further rolls. When a target has 0 health, it's dead. You'll draw the drops listed in the corner of the card, coins, loot, or treasure cards, and then move on to the next encounter. The party can also flee from targets. To do so, all characters make a roll against the target's die defense. Any characters that fail will take 1 damage, and then the encounter is discarded. The party cannot rest until they arrive at a non-combat encounter or they defeat a future combat encounter because they're running away from this one target that is presumed to be chasing them. Once all 4 encounters of the first realm have been resolved, you're at the end of the realm. Generally speaking, at the end of the realm, the party will draw and reveal 3 treasures and pick 1 to keep. But remember, anytime a sin is revealed by a player, they must take it and assign it to their character, and then no treasure is gained by the party. At the end of the realm, any player with a dead character can be reintroduced to the party by drawing a character from the character deck. Once you're ready, draw the second realm, read it aloud, place 4 encounter cards beneath it unless the rules tell you to do something otherwise, and then begin the next realm. Repeat for realms 3 and 4. But at the start of the 5th realm, draw and reveal the traitor god that the party will fight at the end of the 5th realm. This gives the players a chance to prepare for the unique rules of the final battle. Remember that the traitor god takes place outside of the 5th realm, so the rules of the 5th realm will not be active when the party is in the final battle. When the traitor god is dead, the game is over. And remember, when the character dies, or when any character dies, all of their held items are added to the drops of the encounter that the party is presently facing. If the party wants to keep any of those items, they must kill all active targets. And if all characters die, the party is lost, and the game is over. Now, for a much more detailed look at the game. Let's start by familiarizing ourselves with these decks. First, we have the character cards, the starter items, encounters, loots, treasures, rests, realms 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, status effects, and then the traitor gods here. You'll also get a bunch of reroll counters, which are used for basically whatever you want in the game. Generally speaking, tracking health, charges on items, use them for armor, whatever you want. Let's start with the character cards. All characters have their attack value here in the little ball and chain. The little kettlebell shows you their maximum inventory size or their maximum carry weight, and their health all across the middle of the card. Then you have their special text, their death effect, and then a trait. All items in the game can be used by any character, but many items in the game have trait tags. If your character has a matching trait tag, they get that extra function listed beneath the trait tag on the item. Sometimes, realms, encounters, or rests will also have trait tags. In order to activate those, a character with the matching trait tag just needs to be in the party. A diverse party is key for winning the game. If a character's health reaches 0, they die, and all of their held items are added to the drops of the target that killed them. Players with dead characters can rejoin the party with a new character drawn from the deck once the party plays a rest card or whenever the party reaches the end of a realm. If a character dies while fleeing, all of their possessions are just lost to the world. They're basically just discarded. You'll never see them again. Then we have the starter items. These are basic items that you receive at the start of the game. They include some consumables, some weapons, spells, and equipment. Items have weight and an item type right here in the middle. Remember, this is a cooperative game, and all the items you hold should be visible to everyone else throughout the game. All cards held by a character contribute to their weight, and the characters cannot move between encounters if they're holding more than they can carry. If an item has a campfire in the background of the text box, that means it can only be used while resting. If an item is a consumable, that means that it has a limited number of uses. Usually that number is 1, but if you see, like right here, the spectral sword has 3 counters. That means that it can be used 3 times before it must be discarded. If a card is an equipment card, it usually provides a consistent passive buff for the player or the party. If a card has armor, when you acquire it, add an equal number of counters to it when adding it to your inventory to keep track of how much armor it still has. If you have armor and take damage, remove 1 armor counter from your card and reduce the incoming damage by 1. If you have multiple sources of armor, you may pick which source you'd like to use, but armor must be used if it's available. If armor is added directly to your character, just put it above their health bar and use it as normal. If a card is an active card, it can be activated at any time to gain the effect of the card, but it must be recharged before it can be used again. Many cards need to be recharged by resolving encounters. If it's used during a combat encounter and that combat encounter is defeated, that counts as one of those encounters being resolved. That means that if an active item that requires 2 encounters to be resolved before it's considered charged again is used during a combat encounter, it will remain inactive for the following combat encounter and then become charged again if that second encounter is resolved. It can be for any encounters, it doesn't necessarily need to be a combat encounter. So you could use it during a combat encounter, and the next encounter is a non-combat encounter, and then when you move on to the next one after that, that counts as 2 encounters. Some recharge per every realm, some, just like this one here, recharges every time it's added to your inventory. So just pay attention to how cards are recharged before they are used. Melee and ranged weapons replace your unarmed attack damage. They don't add to it. Like unarmed attacks, melee weapons, like the Corellian Curved Blade here, deal damage to targets using combat rolls. Ranged weapons and many spells used range rolls followed by a dodge roll when attacking enemies, and I'll go into greater detail about that later. Then we have the loot cards. The loot deck contains many consumables, as well as a number of weapons, equipment, and spells. The loot deck also contains 33 nothing cards. If you draw one of these, you find nothing in your search. This card is immediately discarded. The party can optionally spend a reroll counter to discard this card and then draw another loot card from the deck. If you want to know more about the setting of this game, lay all the nothing cards out in order and then you can get a brief overview of the lore. Then we have the treasure cards. The treasure deck holds some of the most powerful cards in the game. It also holds 30 sin cards. Sin cards are extremely powerful debuff cards that will stick to any character that reveals them for any reason, and they can only be removed through absolution or death. Only a few items or encounters will absolve sins, so for most playthroughs, consider these permanent. Pay close attention to which player is allowed to reveal treasure cards, because again, any sin that is revealed is stuck to their character. If a player controls more than one character, they must declare which character they are embodying when they are drawing from the treasure deck, so that they know which character is going to receive the sin cards, if any appear. This is across the board. If a trader reveals their inventory of 2 loots and 2 treasures, and one of those treasures, or 2, are a sin card, that sticks to whoever revealed them, and then the trader will replace those 2 missing treasures with more cards from the deck. At the end of a realm or at any time when you're picking one of multiple treasures, if any of those cards that are revealed are sin cards, they stick to the person that reveals them. And you also don't get a treasure. So if any of this is confusing, remember, sin cards are there to break you, to hurt your party, and to turn your friends against you. So if you find yourself wondering how a particular mechanic works involving sin cards, or really any part of this game, pick the thing that is going to hurt you the most, and go with that. So long as it's reasonable, and it's not going to ruin your evening. This game is about suffering, and I want you to enjoy it. The game also has 4 status effects, and 4 for each effect. Each status effect is beneficial. So we have the Golden Veil, which deflects some incoming damage a single time. Black Ash, which increases your attack strength on your first successful attack against an enemy, but this only lasts until the party plays a rest card. The Crimson Membrane, which will slowly heal you, but if this takes damage twice, then it will rot and slough off of your body. And then the White Chrism, which will permanently allow you to reflect some damage back when you take damage from an interplanar target. These are very valuable because all of the final gods have interplanar types. These statuses weigh nothing, and they cannot be traded. They remain on the character if they are transfigured, so if a character merges with another character at some point in time in the game, or if a character is shifted into a different character type, that will remain, you'll keep your status effects. If you die, the status effects are all discarded. Think of it like a blessing on your body. It will stay there if you change what your body looks like, but if your body dies, the blessing goes away. Next, we have the rest cards. These are some of the most important cards in the game. At the start of the game, the party receives 3 of these rest cards and keeps them face down somewhere on the table. Rest cards can be played after almost any encounter or at the end of a realm. During a rest, characters can trade items, use any items that have a rest symbol in the background of the card, and the party receives 3 reroll counters. While resting, reroll counters can be consumed to restore 2 health to a character. Characters cannot carry more than their maximum weight while traveling between encounters, but if the party is resting, they can access any items that are available to them. Think of it like the items being on the ground around the campfire. That means that if you kill a target and it drops some very valuable items that you would like to use, but you cannot fit them in your inventory, the party can play a rest card, use those items, and then move on. When moving on, all of the items that are not carried in player inventories are then discarded. Then we have the realm cards. The game is split into 5 levels of increasing difficulty. Each realm has a unique set of rules that govern gameplay for the encounters that occur beneath them. Generally speaking, realms are broken into 4 encounters each. The very first encounter of the very first realm is a pick from 3, meaning you add 2 more options to it and you decide which one the party wants to do. Occasionally, some realms will require the final encounter to be a combat encounter. Anytime that this is the case, just reveal the encounter and replace it if it's anything other than a combat encounter. It's pretty simple. At the start of the 5th realm, draw and reveal the traitor god that the party will face at the end of the realm. This gives the players a chance to prepare for the special rules that will govern that battle. At the end of the 5th realm, treat it as any other realm ending, and allow players with dead characters to rejoin the party with a new character. If the party has made it all the way to the end of the 5th realm and they still have 1 rest card remaining, play it at the very end of the 5th, and it will generate a special traitor with the usual 2 loots and 2 treasures, as well as any benefits that the rest card offers. You access that traitor if the party would like, and then you discard the traitor's items just like you would with any other traitor. Then you move on to fight the final encounter. Before we get into that, though, we have the encounter deck. Encounters are split into 2 groups, combat and non-combat. Combat encounters must be resolved by either fighting or fleeing. Non-combat encounters have unique rules and are sometimes entirely optional. First, combat encounters. Combat encounters have a type in the corner. You can use the reminder card to see which it is. So we have a human eye for human, a snake eye for beasts, a cuttlefish eye for interplanar, and then a smoky skull for phenomena. Across the middle, they have their health, their die defense, and their attack strength. They also have their special text and the drops that they reveal upon death. As explained earlier, players engage in combat by making rolls against the die defense of a target. If they are attacking unarmed or with a melee weapon, they roll the d20 for a combat roll. If the roll is at or greater than the die defense of the target, which is a 10 right here, then they do their damage to the target. If it's lower than the die defense, the target does their damage to the character. Ranged weapons and some spells will use ranged rolls, which offer 1 or more chances to deal damage to the target without risking taking damage to the character. To attack with a ranged roll, just use the d20. If your result is at or greater than the die defense, you deal the damage to the target. If it's less than the die defense, you just fail to damage the target, but the target does not damage you. Dodge rolls are often required by ranged weapons or spells. When performing a dodge roll, roll the d20 against the die defense of the target. If your roll is at or greater than the die defense, then you successfully avoid damage. If it's lower, then you take the damage from the target. Note that unarmed attacks or attacks with a melee weapon almost never require you to use dodge rolls. Basically, the benefit of many of the ranged weapons and spells is to give characters multiple chances to damage an enemy while only risking taking damage once. Note that if a target has chain magic, like the Ravenous Bellman of Selûl, the damage is spread around the party 1 point at a time, starting with the attacking character. You can go clockwise or counterclockwise, it's up to you. All of that damage isn't dealt immediately to one player, it's done. This has an attack value of 2, so it hit 1, and 1. It doesn't hit you for 2 and hit the other person for 2. It's spread around point by point. As mentioned before, players take turns in any order that they want. Once all players have taken a turn, they repeat again in any order. And this order can be manipulated to stretch the value of certain items and powers. So pay attention to turn order. During a turn, a player can use a single consumable item, they can activate as many active items as they wish, and then the character must make an attempt to damage an active target by attacking unarmed, or with a weapon, or with a spell. Using a spell to attack a target does not count as using a consumable. So you can use a consumable item and then use a spell in the same turn without breaking the rules. When a target has 0 health, it's dead. The party gathers the drops of the target, which are listed in the corner here. So it's coins and bags for loots and treasure chests for treasure. And then the target is discarded, and then you move on to the next target. Then we have the non-combat encounters. You'll know it's a non-combat encounter because it has no stats across the middle and no type in the top corner. Many of these are optional, including traders. Traders will buy and sell items based on their value, which is listed in the bottom corner of the card in a number of reroll counters. The party can pay for items by selling their own held items for their value to the trader, and then they can also pay with reroll counters that they just have stashed aside. Every trader, generally speaking, generates an inventory of 2 loot and 2 treasure cards, so you can see what they're selling, but pay attention to who is revealing the treasure cards when they do. If the party overpays for an item, like say they have a card that's worth 5 value and they're buying something for 3, the trader will give change in the form of extra reroll counters. When finished at the trader, all of the trader's unpurchased inventory are just discarded into their respective piles. Finally, we have the Trader Gods. Each Trader God is a uniquely challenging battle that takes place in another plane of existence, so all of the rules of the realm are ignored for this battle. You can look on the back here and see that the traders have a type, they have their pool of health, and they have their die defense here, but they don't have a base attack level, because depending on how you fail on your roll against the Trader God, with a failed combat roll or a failed dodge roll, that determines the degree to which the enemy god is going to damage you. So a serious failure of a 1 to 2 on Kralesh here, it will hit you with the head of the hammer, which deals a lot more damage than a lesser failure here, which only deals 2 damage. So pay attention to all of these rules. Each battle is unique, and once you get the Trader God down to 0 health, the game is over, the god is dead, the whole world is over as well, everyone dies, and you can come back again and play with a new cycle, a new group of enemies, a new group of items and characters, and new realms, or make your own rules and change the game entirely. It's your game. I just made it. Finally, here are some alternate rules for those who want a bit more of an easier access to the game. I would say that if you're having a bit of trouble starting the game out, you can start your character off. Everybody starts with, say, 3 points of armor at the start of the game, if that makes it easier for you. You can also say that all of the encounters of the first realm are pick from 2. That gives it so you have a bit more agency when you're starting out the game. I would also say that you can use the pick from multiples as an option to have different chances of finding different things that you want with the items in the game. I do have to say that too many items is actually very detrimental to how much fun the game is, because there's a certain point where you hit a cognitive overload and you don't want to have so many extra things sitting around. So getting yourself to have just the right number of items and just the right kind of synergy is really important, but you don't want to overdo it. That's what I've found in all of my playthroughs. But again, it's your game, and if you have any ideas for different playthroughs and different ways to make it more engaging and more to your tastes, I would love to hear it, because I will eventually be putting out a hotfix for some of the rules in this game and changing a few things around so that more people can have more fun with different types of play styles. So if you have any questions about this, you can look through the rulebook that came in the box. You can go to winslowdomain.com/rules and see a searchable version of that entire rule set. There's also a little question form if you'd like to submit any questions to me directly. But again, the tone of the game is to be oppressive and difficult, and very bleak. So if you have any questions, I would say presume the worst thing for your party and see how that makes you feel. That's my idea for the game. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have fun.